Hello YouTube, Carl Cunningham. Today we're going to be talking about how to put on a wetsuit properly. And a little secret, none of the YouTube videos have it correct. None of the triathletes, none of the wetsuit manufacturers, none of the so-called experts have it correct. I have a secret of how to put on a wetsuit so you'll look like a star at your next triathlon. But before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about how wetsuits are made. Yamamoto Wetsuits is a Japanese company that makes the world's finest wetsuits. And I'm not going to get into the history of Yamamoto or the detailed, intricate ways in which they produce the wetsuits, but I want everybody to just kind of think about a loaf of bread, an unsliced loaf of bread. The Yamamoto company produces their wetsuits with a series of ingredients. One of those ingredients is limestone, of all things. And limestone contains more air bubbles than the competitor's way of manufacturing wetsuits, which is petroleum-based. So right off the bat, Yamamoto is going to make a more buoyant, better quality wetsuit than the competitors. And going back to the loaf of bread, Yamamoto will create this block of neoprene. It's more like a big sponge. Think of maybe, and I don't know the exact dimensions, but think of basically an 8-foot by 4-foot piece of neoprene. They are going to slice it in the widths of 2 millimeter, 3 millimeter, 5 millimeter, 7 millimeter, and so on. The exterior portions of the loaf of bread is the most valuable of the neoprene in the loaf of bread. The exterior crust, we'll call them, is what triathlon wetsuits are made out of. It's what freediving wetsuits are made out of, and because you only get 2 of those slices, the outer slices, it's a much more expensive wetsuit. The interior slices are relegated to surfing and scuba diving because those 2 sports don't need the high quality open cell quality of the neoprene. Once again, triathlon wetsuits and freediving wetsuits need the open cell concept to have the best quality. So wetsuit companies and manufacturers such as Roka will buy the 2 exterior crusts of the neoprene loaf of bread. And from there, they will cut the wetsuits into their trademark design in which you see today. And guys, if you're getting anything out of this video, please hit that like button and subscribe. And the founders of Roka, Kurt Spencer and Rob Canales, if you get any benefit out of this video, please comment below. I'll certainly appreciate it. These wetsuits manufactured specifically for triathlons and for freediving are very tight-fitting. I've seen a lot of YouTube videos on how to put on a wetsuit, and they're all wrong. I can say this because I have a lot of experience being a scuba rescue diver, being a dive master, being an instructor, being a free diver. And I came in first place in the very first triathlon I ever entered. I know about wetsuits. I know about the wetsuits that are on the interior loaf of bread, and I know about the wetsuits that are on the exterior part of the loaf of bread, if you will. 2 totally different wetsuits. Surfing wetsuits and scuba wetsuits usually have a huge YKK zipper that you can easily put on, and they're not so tight as the triathlon wetsuits or the freediving wetsuits. So how do you put on a wetsuit without destroying the interior? If you try to put on a triathlon wetsuit or a freediving wetsuit dry, or let's say even with a little bit of water, microscopically you are making several tears on the interior of the wetsuit, believe it or not. And whenever you do that, a couple things. It lets water in and it makes you colder. And over time, it starts to destroy and wear away at the wetsuit. How do you avoid this? Lubrication. The best lubrication, believe it or not, is very environmentally friendly and wetsuit friendly conditioner. I like to use Suave coconut scent because it just smells a lot better, especially being around the water. And I picked this large bottle up for $3.95 at my local grocery store. This single bottle will have 50 to 100 uses. It literally is 2 to 3 cents per use. So when you're going to the triathlon, a couple things. You can bring a small bottle and lather up your body. I'll show this to you all in a moment whenever I don the wetsuit. But you can lather up your body, lather up your swimsuit or your triathlon suit, and put the wetsuit on. And believe me, you're going to thank me. Again, I have not seen any videos on how to do this properly on YouTube, so I believe I'll be one of the first. And this is by no means my idea. I learned this several years ago as a free diver. This is what we do. Before we get into the water, we lather up with conditioner and then we put our wetsuits on. And since we're all triathletes, the last thing we need is one more step, especially the morning of our big race. We don't like to carry a lot of things to the event. Instead, the night before or the morning of, before you even leave your house or your hotel room, pre-lube the interior of your wetsuit with conditioner. And whenever you arrive to the event and you're putting on your wetsuit and everybody else is stressed and putting on dry wetsuits, tearing up the interiors of their wetsuits, you'll just be literally sliding your wetsuit on and saying, man, that Carl Cunningham really knows what he's talking about. Okay, I don't want to knock anybody, but there's a lot of YouTube influencers that like to use single-use plastic bags as a means of putting on a wetsuit. I highly discourage this for several reasons. Single-use plastics, we already know that they pollute the ocean. The last thing that you want to be known as before your big triathlon swim is that guy who puts on his wetsuit with the single-use plastic grocery bags. And usually, let's face it, it's windy around the ocean or the lakes, and it's very likely that you'll lose one or both of your plastic bags into the water. And that is a huge party foul. Do not be that guy. This stuff is not bad for the environment. It's not bad for the water. A couple more things. Putting conditioner on the interior of your wetsuit, it doesn't harm the neoprene at all. In fact, it lubes it. It makes it last a little bit longer. When you have the conditioner on, you have your wetsuit on at this point, and you jump into the water and you're swimming, it really cuts down on the chafing as well. So, and another benefit is when you come to your first transition and you're trying to take off your wetsuit, again, that conditioner is still going to be in your wetsuit, and you'll be able to take your wetsuit off as easy as you put it on. The conditioner is an amazing friend that you'll never be without for your triathlons. Trust me. Okay, let's go ahead and do the box opening. I ordered a Roka, my very first Roka triathlon wetsuit. Roka. Okay, I went for the Maverick Pro 2 because the Maverick X2 was sold out in my size. So this is, I guess, for all intents, maybe the second best wetsuit that you can buy from Roka. We have the packaging here. I've seen a couple videos on unboxing of these wetsuits. This is awesome. A little bit of information on the Pro 2 wetsuit. I'm going to be reading all through that. I heard about these gloves. Again, you don't need the gloves because you'll have the conditioner. It works better than the gloves. And this is a mesh bag, which is excellent for wetsuits in general. Very breathable, and it allows the wet wetsuit to dry properly. Great bag. Thank you, guys. All right. This is the Pro 2 wetsuit in the medium large. I'll get into it in a few minutes here. All right. Roka.
Carl's all lubed up.
Triathlon wetsuit.
Ready to put a suit on.
Manufactured in Austin, Texas. Okay, the secret to putting these things on, and they do have really tight cuffs, is Suave coconut conditioner. You saw how easily my foot got in. Now, on the morning of your triathlon, the last thing that you need to be bothered with is, you know, using plastic grocery store bags to get your suit on. Instead, the night before, just lube up your suit on the interior, and you won't have that issue. And you'll look like a pro. I've heard that it takes some triathletes up to 5 minutes to put this suit on. That is ridiculous. You don't want to use your fingernails. You want to use your fingertips to put it on. This is Christmas Eve, by the way. Merry Christmas. Lots of fog here in Ahwatukee, Arizona. I got plenty of lube on. Looks like something happened.
You are ready. You're ready to make a movie.
All right, JK. Tonya, give me a count of 3.
All right. And 3, 2, 1.
I hope this came out because the mirror is kind of jacked.
My fastest time in the 100 without the suit, 1:17. I pulled in 1:10. So this suit does work. All right, Roka. Looking forward to Escape from Alcatraz, June 8th.